Good morning. Well, it was kind of a little stormy night, and our lights flickered, so the um, electronic clocks all started flashing. And so I was a little late in getting up, so I didn't have a chance to do a chat beforehand. So we're going to do our little chat now. It's about 11 o'clock on Friday morning. And yeah, my back kind of hurt, so I'm just kind of laying back. And so go grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your pop, whatever you like, and sort of sit back, relax, and we'll get into our topics of this morning. Okay, I left the weather off the introduction today. Just let it be known that Vancouver is in for some very rainy, very sorry, that's my laptop. Blistery kind of rain showers. The wind is gonna pick up. We get kind of very comfortable here on the west coast, and yeah, but we're there was supposed to be a part of a cyclone, or not. I keep calling it a cyclone. It's not a cyclone. It's a typhoon that was supposed to break up, and we were supposed to get hit with that. I don't hear any reference to that today, so I don't know if we're just looking for another severe low happening, or if we are actually in for this typhoon coming in. Do 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 do. So it makes it look more like a Pac-Man. But people, if Vancouver ever again got hit by a hurricane, I don't think Vancouver, including myself, could ever be prepared for one. It would take an awful lot of um, information, commercials, or whatever to get out there and to keep the information flowing. Because I don't think that we have a great information. Because I think, how many times has Vancouver heard that there's going to be a... No, that works too. Sorry, my finger there. What do you call it? A tidal wave coming towards Vancouver. And they never come, or they're canceled. It's usually after we get an earthquake. But, you know, I think Vancouver needs to be more um, awake to environmental changes. The rain can cause mudslides. We don't necessarily get too much of a tidal wave because we're pretty well protected by the west side of Vancouver Island. So Victoria would end up getting it before we would. But a lot of people take that, say, oh, nothing will ever happen to us. The big earthquake's going to happen before anything like that will happen. Well, this is the time that we need to be prepared. And, sometimes people in the low-lying areas, I'm thinking of around Kitsilano and that, which could be easily influenced by one of these storms. I'm thinking of a storm that happened, I don't know, was it 92 or 91, where we were hit by the Stanley Park windstorm, and where the seawalk was closed down because of this windstorm that hit. So it's very easy to see that rain and windstorms can affect us in Vancouver, yet we're never really prepared for these things. Now, they say you should have an emergency kit raring to go, with a change of clothes, food, water, first aid equipment, your medical equipment, anything that you would need for, I believe it's up to 72 hours. And then, if you're able to continue on after that, at least you have a good start. But they normally say that people will not be able to get to you for at least 72 hours after a major emergency. Though we become very complacent and people start thinking, oh, well, I'll just go to the grocery store if I need groceries because, I can't get into my building. Well, I'll be able to do that. Well, you're not going to be able to do that. We've seen that in places that have had earthquakes after that the grocery stores are closed and you're not sorry, that's my iPad again. You're not able to get into these stores. So, it's a good idea that you get an emergency kit ready and you also get a medicine emergency kit ready to go. And you'll get an updated prescription as well. Because if something happens, you're unable to get into your building or whatever, you should be able to go to a pharmacy and get your prescription filled. You know, but don't count on things. You should have some up-to-date prescriptions filled in your bag as well. But people will constantly fight this, and oh no, oh everything will be fine. Though these are always the first ones that have to panic. I know I've done a medical kit. I haven't quite developed a food kit, but I'm hoping. I think around here the biggest damage would be fallen trees. And, I think I may have to get a chainsaw just to be ready, just to cut through um, tree trunks and such in order to carry on. I've got food for my cat and my dog ready. I've got clothes by the door that I could change into, or not change into, but take with me if I need to. But, we're always stubborn people up here, and we are always looking and saying, oh, you know what, it'll never happen here. An earthquake emergency or that will only happen long after I'm gone, so I don't necessarily need to be worried about these things. Well, you're wrong there. I can remember thinking the wind and the rain of the same storms that took down the trees in Stanley Park. I can remember, God, I hope everything's going to be okay, and I hope we don't lose power. Now, normally we're okay with power here because most of the power is, how do I say? Sorry, it's here. Because we're so close to the hydro office, most of our electricity is underground. Now, today we had a little flicker of lights here. I think I spoke about that in the intro. And I think that was pretty well, from power being switched from one location to another. And, it was enough to get my alarm clocks. And I was also having a low blood sugar this morning. And I didn't know what was going on, left, right, or center here. But, that could also happen, in a major emergency. So get yourself and your family prepared and also have a meeting up location. If there's a fire in your building, you need to make sure that your family has a place to meet and not just say, oh, well, yeah, we'll just find everyone after. There's a reason why schools and that have all their classes going to one spot. And that's because, they need to keep people awake, sorry, come together in one spot so they can count to make sure people aren't still in the building, that everyone's safe. So you need to make sure you do that with your family. And make sure you have um, your medication, your clothing, some extra food, maybe an axe, and make sure you're all safe and that you and your family have a place to be safe and to count and to meet all together. Something to think about. Two men left Abbotsford to meet up with a third to go to hunting expedition, and they never showed up. And these two men, I'm going to give a description. Um, One by the name of Selinger is described as, I'm going to lift up my glasses because the iPad's really close here, is about 6 foot 1 inch tall, weighing about 210 pounds. He has a gray hair, mustache, and brown eyes. He was last seen a red plaid jacket, blue jeans, suspenders, hiking shoes, and driving a 2008 Dodge Ram pickup truck with a white camper. The plate number is CL7454. And Bacon is described as a Caucasian. Sorry, I just keep itching today. He's about 5 feet 11 inches tall. He's weighing about 245 pounds. He has white hair, a beard, and dichromatic eyes. He was last seen wearing a red plaid jacket, blue jeans, suspenders, hiking shoes, and driving a blue 2002 Suzuki Vitra sedan, plate 564LFG. Now, if you see either one of these gentlemen, you should contact, who is it? The Abbotsford Police Department at 604-859-5225 or text them at 222973, which is actually, if you spell it out on your phone, it's the Abbey PD. It's just they've gone missing. Now, they could have stopped off somewhere because of the rain or whatever, or they could be in some danger. And I don't mean, physical, like somebody's out to shoot them or anything. They could just be stuck somewhere and can't find a way home. But if anyone, help out your fellow neighbor. And if anyone's can't find these people or has found these people and know where they are, let someone know. Something to think about and something to do your good deed. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, we're going to take a trip across Canada. We're not taking a trip, but I'm just using that as sort of an introduction. But to Saskatchewan, where a youth under the young criminal or young, I don't know how, Canada Criminal Act or whatever. These people were helping a girl out who was having trouble, and they were allowed her to come into their home, and she killed a youngster about 6 to 7 weeks old. Now, the father or the grandfather was on saying, "Why would you do this? Why would you try to kill someone who's underage and can't fight for themselves, can't fight back, they can't scream for help?" But, and then they keep asking, "Oh, well, we should be lenient against these people." This person caused someone's death, and not an adult, but and not even a child who could possibly have some way of fighting back. This was a baby who probably trusted whoever they would come in contact with. And she went off and killed him. For we aren't being told the exact reasons yet. But it brings me back to when I was growing up that in England there were these two boys that took this young kid off down the railroad tracks out of a mall in a small town, or I don't know if it was small town or suburb of London, and killed it. Like, it actually beat him to death. Now, why are you doing this to people? And it was pretty well back then, I think, was decided, oh, well, it was just a, fun and exciting thing to do. Well, get it in your mind that, here these kids were not thinking that anything could happen to them. And, it was just kind of like, oh, well, no one's going to get after us because we're kids and no one's going to um, put us in jail for something like this. Well, maybe we need to revisit this Young Offenders Act. That's the name of it, sorry. This Young Offenders Act, and get more on it where, more kids are doing these bigger and more violent crimes. And this is what was talked about years ago when the um, Young Offenders Act was first introduced, and there was so much uproar back then. And, it's all died down. But, now it makes me really think that if your crimes are that severe, that maybe you do need to be brought up to um, more higher um, labels of justice and be tried as an adult. Because you were obviously thinking about as an adult, so why don't you try? And the reason why they weren't trying this as an adult was because their sentence would be 7 years in prison as an adult. However, if they were tried as a young offender, it would be that their sentence would be 7 years, but part of it would be able to be um, out in the uh, neighborhoods. And, I really have to think, sorry, I just keep getting an itchy nose. Why do we worry about these people that do commit these crimes? Now, I can understand something like that if you were, how do I say, if you were shoplifting, but once you do a violent crime, and I'm talking, murder or even an armed robbery, where you're causing that you're going to do theft, or sorry, not theft, but you're going to kill someone if they don't hand over money or valuables or whatever, or home invasions, then I think you should be brought up as an adult person. Shoplifting or other less violent crimes, a person should be able to be, how do I say, tried as a young offender. Keeping people just because of their age should not mean that they get a less of a sentence. If you're up and you keep your actions are those the same as an adult, then you should be tried as an adult. People keep trying to think, oh, well, these people are youngsters and they should really get a second chance. Well, these people that they've killed, well, when do they get a second chance? It's not like they get another second chance to live. And, I can understand that if they get probation, that they should be able to be allowed to get a second chance to get out in society. But not just give them, oh, well, they're a teenager and, oh, they didn't know they were doing wrong. I'm sorry, they knew downright what they were doing. There are how many adults have been put in for that same excuse? And, we kind of sit there and say, oh, well, you knew what you were doing. Well, who says these teenagers and these less than adults don't know what they're doing? And I think they do know what they're doing. And we need to make sure that they know what they're going to get themselves into. And saying, oh, well, you didn't really know what you were going to get yourself into, so we're going to give you a little lighter sentence. Well, yeah, that's, a lot of times that ended up coming out to be a slap on the wrist. And yet, we keep wanting to do this in Canada. And I'm sure there's, I don't know if he was from Canada or actually, I think he was, where a guy on a probation, him and his mother, fled down to Mexico, and it took the BC government or the Washington State, I can't remember which it was, a long time trying to track down these people. And, this was that this person was being spoiled, for lack of a better term, by his parents. And that is why it was drunk driving, that's what it was. And he got behind the wheel of a car and killed someone being 16 years of age. And they won that case. And, you killed someone, and yet he was let out a short time after he began his sentence on probation. And, he never went to his probation officer. He ended up going back down. He just did go. And then him and his mother flew or drove to Mexico. And he was thinking he'd just live out his life there. Everything would be fine. And the police ended up going down there and picking him up and extraditing him back to Canada. Where, I never heard what came out of that, but I certainly hope he's not going to be, put into, oh, well, he'll get another chance at parole because he's so young. Well, forget about these youngsters. If they're doing adult crimes, then they should be doing the adult time. Kids need to know that they're not going to get off these challenges because they're young. A lot of these times, stuff like the last case I was talking about are premeditated. And allowing these people to go off and have a premeditative act, why shouldn't they be tried as an adult? Because Canadians passed a law saying that they could not be tried. And we really need to ensure that we try these people as adults. Something to think about. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now. Okay, it's Friday. It's going to be a wet weekend. So, hope you have a wonderful time this weekend and enjoy yourself. Well, I'll be back tomorrow with another interesting chat. And, get out there and make it an awesome weekend for yourself. And maybe who knows, you can win a trip somewhere and get off somewhere where it's warm. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye now.